What's up, friends? Welcome into KansasNation.com. This is Rock Chalk Sports. Sean Kellerman is not here because he is in Louisville, Kentucky right now, as the Kansas Jayhawk men's basketball team is going to be tipping off tonight against Louisville in an exhibition game. That's right, folks. Basketball season is finally here. Be sure to tune in on 810 WHB for all of that play-by-play coverage by none other than Sean Kellerman. That leaves me here doing the show. I will take you through the rest of the week. Got a big show for you today. Going to start things off by opening up KU K-State Dillon's Sunflower Showdown. KU and K-State are going to be taking on each other at the new booth. It's going to be a very exciting game. Going to open up with that, a little bit of a preview, also some game picks. After that, have a couple more things from Big 12 Media Days that happened over this past week for men's basketball, as Bill Self and Trey White, Darren Peterson, and Floyd Budunga were made available at the podium. It's their podium segment, so I'll be playing that for you guys as well. And then right at the top of the hour, Brian Hanni, voice of the Jayhawks, is going to be joining the show as well. He has his own show here, by the way, Hanni and the Hawks. Be sure to check that out. The most recent episode was Joe Deneen, former All-American linebacker for Kansas. Kind of in the dark days, he was a glimmer of light, if you will, kind of in those dark days. Got a lot of great shows coming up. He's got Carrie Meyer. That's going to be coming up. It's going to be released later on in the week. So be sure to stay tuned on kansasnation.com, as well as check out all of our YouTubes, everywhere you find all of our podcasts for that as well. But Brian's going to be joining me, going to be talking a lot of KU football, a lot of KU basketball as well. And then after that, Shreyas Laddha from the Kansas City Star is going to be joining the show. Shreyas, he's a beat writer for the Kansas City Star, talking all things Jayhawks as well. He always joins us on Fridays. A little bit of a mix-up in terms of the schedule. Brian usually joins us on Thursdays, but with Big 12 Media Days and everything going on, he's coming on Friday. We're kind of doing a double dip with guests today with Brian Hanni and Shreyas Laddha. After that, going to be doing a deep dive into KU men's basketball. Going to be previewing the Louisville game. It's going to be a huge game. Now, it doesn't matter, right, because it's an exhibition game. Louisville right now, they're ranked 11th in the AP. Kansas ranked 19th. It's going to be interesting to see how all that shakes up. And then after that, going to be doing some NFL and some college football game picks for you to close out the show. Wanted to get things started talking a little KU football. KU K-State, they're going to be battling on the gridiron here in Lawrence. And I'll just go ahead and say it. This is the biggest game of Lance Leipold's career. You can look back and say, oh, the Liberty Bowl. Oh, the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. The Oklahoma State game where Kansas became bowl eligible. You can even talk about, the Big Noon Kickoff or when College Game Day was here. This one is the most important of Lance Leipold's career, because this is, and I know people don't like the term legacy game, if you will, but this is going to be a legacy game for both him and Jalen, right? Because you look at Jalen right now, it's easy to say Jalen Daniels is probably the second best Jayhawk quarterback in the last, I'll give him the last 25 years, right? Because, you got your John Hadles, your Nolan Cromwells, those kind of guys. Jalen Daniels is an incredible quarterback, is going to go down in the annals of history of Kansas football as one of the greats, but he's never beaten K-State. He has never won a bowl game in theory, right? He played in a Liberty Bowl. We lost the Liberty Bowl in double overtime, and the Guaranteed Rate Bowl, Jason Bean wound up winning that game, had an incredible game in the Guaranteed Rate Bowl, and we love Jason Bean, obviously. So Jalen Daniels, with all of his accolades that he has had, still doesn't have, the quote-unquote accolades of beating Kansas State, of winning a bowl game by himself. So this is going to be a huge game for both of these guys, and I'll talk about it with Lance, because if you have what I would consider the second best Jayhawk quarterback in the last 25, I'll even go 30 years, and you don't beat K-State, and you cannot break the streak, if not now, then when, right? You absolutely have to beat Kansas State, because, and there's multiple factors in this too. This is the worst Kansas State team that we've seen since the Ron Prince era, which, by the way, is the last time Kansas beat Kansas State in 2007. Ron Prince was their coach. They fired him almost immediately after that game. Kansas was really good that year too, But they had Jordy Nelson. Kansas State was really good. Ever since then, K-State has gone on an unprecedented run of just beating the brakes off of Kansas. And yes, that was in the dark years. We're out of the dark years. Kansas has a brand new stadium. If you open up your brand new stadium with the first Dillon Sunflower Showdown and you lose against a bad Kansas State team, the worst team that we've seen since the Ron Prince years, you have to start thinking about ceilings, right? And now I understand that Lance Leipold has a much higher ceiling, but also look at the talent that he has on this squad. If you're not able to do it, then you start to think it becomes a mental thing. It becomes a mental block where you physically cannot beat Kansas State. It doesn't matter if you have a better team. Doesn't matter how much talent, more talented you had. Doesn't matter how much less talented they are, right? It becomes a sort of a mental block. We've seen that time and time again throughout sports where it's just so difficult to beat one team. They had to win this game. And I'll give you a breakdown of this game. So Avery Johnson, obviously, is their star quarterback. And I was looking at the numbers, and it's kind of shocking to me how close they are, Jalen and Avery Johnson, in terms of the way that they've been playing, but sort of the narratives fit around them, right? Because Jalen Daniels, he's having what I would consider to be a like a top 10 Heisman contender year right now. He has 18 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, I believe, 2 interceptions, somewhere around there. Close to 2,000 yards, if not over 2,000 yards. Jalen's having a fantastic year so far. Avery Johnson also having a fantastic year. He has 1,500 yards on the year. His completion percentage is worse than Jalen's, right? He has a 62.8% completion percentage, but he has 13 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. And plus, Avery, and I will give credit where credit's due, Avery is better on his legs than Jalen Daniels is. So this is going to be a big game for the defense. I want to start on the defense and trying to contain Avery Johnson. The defensive side of the ball has to come up huge. I want to see big games out of our defensive ends, not just getting tackles for loss, not just getting sacks. They have to be able to contain because of the fact that Kansas State, they're down their best running back, which is Dillon Edwards. Dillon Edwards came out of Derby, went to Colorado out of high school, transferred back over to K-State after being initially committed to K-State. Then he committed to Notre Dame. Then he committed to Colorado. Now he's back and he transferred to K-State. He's going to be out. He is a threat on the ground. He is a very, very good running back, one of the better running backs in the Big 12. With him being out, you have to start thinking that they're going to be game planning for that. They're going to be game planning more quarterback designed runs with Avery Johnson because I don't know if they have the same amount of trust in their backup running back as they do with Dillon Edwards or with even Avery Johnson, right? I think they probably trust Avery Johnson on his legs more than they trust their backup running back. So you're going to have to watch for those designed quarterback runs, whether it be on the outside or running up the inside, doing some kind of inside zone with the quarterback, whatever it may be. So the defensive line, this is going to be one of their bigger games as well. Now, we've seen sort of two different versions of this Kansas defense at times whenever they've been out there on the field. We've seen where they've done a great job of containing running quarterbacks with Bo Pribula, right? Nico Marchiol. You've seen that. Now, what happened against Texas Tech? Will Hammond. He came in. He was the backup quarterback for Texas Tech. They didn't really game plan for a running quarterback because Baron Morton didn't like to run nearly as much. I think he might have had one rush in the entire game against Kansas. Will Hammond, not Will Howard. Will Hammond, he's able to do it on his legs. And he absolutely killed the Hawks on his legs. He had 2 rushing touchdowns in that game. He came up big, by the way. Talk about a guy who's been able to step up. I think that's not talked about enough on the Texas Tech side of things. So Kansas has done both a very good job and a very bad job at containing running quarterbacks. I'm interested to see which defense we're going to see. Is it going to be the good one or is it going to be the bad one? Kansas did an okay job of containing Brendan Sorsby, but Brendan Sorsby was able to utilize his wide receiver talent and kind of carve up that Kansas defense at the end of the game in that Cincinnati game. So first things first, this defensive line is going to have to come up huge. You have to get pressure. You have to make Avery Johnson uncomfortable, but you have to make him throw the ball because he is very susceptible to run. He likes to run. That's his thing. He's a dual threat quarterback, mostly likes to run. So if you're able to get pressure on him, but contain him in the pocket, do not let him get outside, get those edges, and get those extra chunk plays on a broken play, I think Kansas is going to be okay, and that's going to come down to Dean Miller, Justice Finkley, Dak Brinkley, right? The law firm of Finkley and Brinkley. You have to get pressure up front with DJ Withers, Tommy Dunn. I want to see Keenan Caldwell have a big game as well. And then on the flip side of this, we always talk about complementary football. Your secondary has to be able to cover, right? So if you're able to flush Avery Johnson, make him throw the ball, you have to be able to contain their skill position players. They have two very good skill position players. And Garrett Oakley, he is their tight end. He has been phenomenal this year. Their tight end, Garrett Oakley, he has 25 receptions for 271 yards, 4 touchdowns this year. And then Jace Brown. Jace Brown has been incredible this year. 32 receptions, 417 yards, 13 on average. He has a 48-yarder on the year. He has 3 touchdowns. Less touchdowns than I would have imagined, but also Avery Johnson gets a lot of touchdowns on the ground. So there is that. But I want to see the secondary be able to step up, because the secondary is kind of the same as defensive front in terms of we've seen 2 different secondaries. We've seen them where they do a great job in coverage, and we've seen them where they do a terrible job in coverage. There's no gray area, right? It's either really good or really bad. I want to see the really good one, or even the gray area. If you are able to just play fine coverage, they only have a few skill position players who are able to make these incredible plays, right? It's Jace Brown, Jaron Tibbs, and Garrett Oakley. Other than that, it's a pretty steep drop off. You have Jaron Bradley, you have Joe Jackson, Will Swanson. These guys, they only have 2 other guys who have double-digit receptions on the year. Other than that, Will Swanson, he's a backup tight end. He has 4 receptions. So they don't like to distribute the ball to different wide receivers very often. They like to utilize Jace Brown. He's sort of the bell cow of that wide receiver room. He gets a lot of the targets, right? So you're going to have big games out of Jalen Todd or Saeed Gibbs or Mason Ellis, because here's the thing about Jace Brown. He likes to line up in the slot. 70% of his snaps are on the inside. He's not playing the X or the Z receiver. He's playing that slot receiver. He can find those soft spots in that zone. So how do you stop that? Do you play man-on-man with him with Saeed Gibbs? Do you trust Saeed Gibbs's coverage enough to be able to stop that? Or do you try to find that zone and try to manipulate the zone to stop him? Also, I want to talk about Garrett Oakley as well, because Garrett Oakley is a very good tight end. Like I said, he has 25 receptions on the year, and he likes to hit that tight end seam. More than likely, you're going to see Bengali Kamara guarding him quite a bit. And I have a sort of a glass shattering stat about Bengali Kamara. And I love Bengali Kamara. I think I'll say it, he's probably the best player on our defense. In coverage, he's terrible. He has had 13 targets against Bengali Kamara, 12 catches on 13 targets against him. So on coverage with a guy like Garrett Oakley, who already is a very good tight end, that's going to be a big challenge for Bengali Kamara to have to come up big for that. So that's on the defensive side of the ball. Again, they have a pretty solid offensive line, but I think Kansas is going to be able to get that pressure on Avery Johnson, but you have to be able to contain him. The run game is going to be big. It's going to be rainy all day, so that could potentially play a factor and could potentially take out Jace Brown and Garrett Oakley, right? Because we saw what happened earlier this year in Dublin, where it was a rainy game against Iowa State, and Avery Johnson looked terrible through the air. So I think there is that could be kind of a precursor, kind of a foreshadowing of, oh, hey, Avery Johnson doesn't like to throw, or at least, if he has sort of a play action where he can either run or pass the ball, or if he has the opportunity where he's greenlit to take it out, I think he's going to do that more often than not. So the biggest point of emphasis is going to have to be containing. On the offensive side of the ball, K-State's defense is really good, but they have been susceptible to giving up points before. They gave up 34 points, I believe, to North Dakota, who's the second best team in the entire state of North Dakota, which probably only 2. I think there's only 2 teams. None of them are FBS level. FCS, they're all FCS. So this defense is going to be interesting. They have a good secondary. Austin Romaine has been an absolute killer on the defensive side of the ball for this K-State team. Austin Romaine, like I said, he has 32 solo tackles, 49 total, 17 assisted tackles, no sacks yet. He has a couple of pass deflections. He has a fumble return. Their leading sacker is Desmond Purnell. He has 3 sacks. Or no, excuse me, is Zashawn Rich. He's a cornerback. I'm reading this wrong. I'm so sorry about this. So their leading sacker is Toby Osanami. He has 4 sacks on the year. I was reading the pass deflections. He has 4 sacks on the year for 31 total yards. Desmond Purnell is a linebacker. He likes to get a lot of pressure too. He has 1 sack for 8 yards. So they do like to bring a lot of pressure, and I think that we're going to see that a lot. They have that 3-man front like we've seen against both Cincinnati, and you're going to see it again this year against Iowa State. West Virginia also had a 3-man front as well. So they like to utilize a rover. So it's going to be interesting to see how Kansas is going to be able to do that in the passing game. Now, Kansas has done well in the passing game against those 3-man fronts with a lot of guys in the secondary in the past. But with it being rainy, it's going to be definitely a challenge. So I think they're going to try to bring a lot of pressure with those linebacker guys, because that's what you do with a 3-man front. You have 3 guys coming up, and then you sort of change where the pressure comes from that second line of defense, where those linebackers are. So we might see Austin Romaine coming in quite a bit in that middle or even on the outside, right? We might see Desmond Purnell coming across the middle or through on the outside. It's going to be a big game for our guys. And on the availability report, Calvin Clements, he's a questionable or probable. I believe they upgraded him to probable as of right now. Calvin Clements, he had the worst game of his life against Texas Tech. He had a 0.0 pass blocking grade. So did Enrique Cruz. So if you want JD to drop back, now this is not going to be as big of a defensive front as Texas Tech's, but there's still a skilled defensive front who can bring a lot of pressure at times. So you need your guys on the outside and Calvin Clements and Enrique Cruz to be able to step up big. And I think that coming off the bye, getting that rest, getting healed up from that Texas Tech game is going to be huge for those guys. But you still need to be able to protect Jalen Daniels. Now that's a given, right? That's not a key to the game. You have to protect your quarterback. You cannot give up a 0.0 pass blocking grade on PFF ever again. You should never do that in the first place, but you should never do that ever again. So that's going to be a gigantic thing for this Kansas squad, is to protect Jalen Daniels. They have to establish a run game as well. Le'Shawn Williams is going to have to come up huge in this game. Le'Shawn Williams is going to be injured. I know he's questionable, right? But I want to see sort of a 2-back thing going on. I want to see even some two running back sets, right, with Daniel Highshaw and Le'Shawn Williams. I want to see both of those guys getting a lot of run, because they're going to have to be able to establish a run game if it's rainy, which is going to be tough. And they're going to have a lot of guys in their secondary with that 3-man front. They have a lot of guys in their secondary with that rover position. Their secondary is good. Their defensive front's good. If you're going to be able to pass the ball, hit those intermediate areas in that zone that they like to run quite a bit. You got to be able to hit Levi Wentz in those zones. I want to see Cam Pickett have a big game as well. But you have to establish a run. Kansas has not been able to establish a run a lot in any of their games, really, right? We've yet to see Daniel Highshaw. This has been a point of emphasis for us, is that Daniel Highshaw has not had that breakout game that we've seen yet. And yes, he's been dealing with some injuries, and Le'Shawn Williams had a breakout game against UCF where he had 3 touchdowns, but also yardage wasn't there, right? So you have to be able to establish a run, get those big chunk plays, not just the touchdowns, but the chunk plays on the run game. So that's my key to the game, is establish a run. Daniel Highshaw and Le'Shawn Williams have to come up huge in this game. On the defensive side, like I said, my key to the game is basically, hey man, you absolutely have to contain Avery Johnson, make him uncomfortable, get pressure on him. Do not allow him to run. Play assignment football. Do not let him get an edge, because he likes to run. He will get those big yards on you. That's the key to the game on both ends of this. It's going to be a fun game. This is the worst Kansas State team we've seen in a long time. This is Kansas's best opportunity to beat these guys and break the streak. Michael Swain said it on Fog.net. Said it's an unstoppable force against an immovable object, with Kansas's 5-game win streak coming off of buys and K-State's 16-game win streak against Kansas alone. So I said it before, and I'll say it again. This is going to be the biggest game of Lance Leipold's career, right? This is going to flip narratives. I'm on Lance's side 100% through and through. I think he's a fantastic coach. I think he's the right guy for this job. I think he's going to be here for a long time. But I think he understands how big of a game this is. He did a good job of like, look. He sort of deflected some questions and saying, oh, I don't think this game is that big of a deal, right? It's just another game. Oh, that that doesn't mean we don't play hard in other games. I think secretly he knows that. Hey, this means a lot to the fans, and we absolutely have to go out there and win this because if not, when? Kansas has to win this game. After this, I'm going to bring on a very special guest, the voice of the Jayhawks, Brian Hanni. He's going to be here calling the game for KU K-State as my co-host Sean Kellerman is out in Louisville. He's going to be talking KU basketball, but we're going to talk all things with Brian Hanni right after this break on Rock Chalk Sports. You're listening on KansasNation.com. Welcome back into Rock Chalk Sports here on KansasNation.com. Dan Courtwright and Sean Kellerman has gotten a little younger. I think he's looking a lot better. I'm just kidding. This is obviously the voice of the Jayhawks, Brian Hanni. I can't believe we didn't mention this, by the way. We got a new desk. It's the coolest thing ever, but it was a pain to get it in here. But we finally got it in here. Brian, I appreciate you coming on the show, man. First things first, because obviously my co-host, he's out in Louisville. Yeah. He's doing play-by-play for Louisville as you're going to be here for the Sunflower Showdown. If you don't mind, I wanted to start off with some basketball questions. Obviously, it's weird because these exhibition games, you never know what to expect, right? I mean, last year we saw Rockies Passmore go insane against Arkansas and then didn't really see him ever again. I won't ask you for a preview because nobody really knows, but I do want to ask you about one guy in particular, in Cole Rosario. He's getting the start. I mean, this is something that Sean had brought up, and I thought he was crazy for even mentioning, like, Cole Rosario's not going to start the year. He might work his way in. He might, continue to get more and more minutes as time goes on. I was like, he's 17 years old or 18 or whatever he is. And, there's no way. But obviously, Bill Self has really liked what he's seen. Tell me what you've seen out of Cole Rosario and the leaps and bounds he's taken ever since he's gotten on campus.
Well, first off, thank you for saying I look younger than Sean. It's a bold-faced lie. I was in a meeting yesterday with Wayne Simeon and Travis Goff, and we were talking about we're all in the same age range. And I looked around the table and I thought, I got way more gray hair than all these guys combined. What are they talking about? Look at this gray. But no, thank you for saying that. Cole Rosario, on the other hand, boy, he is this youthful and yet physically mature,
Yeah.
reclassified player. I can't think of a guy, not that we have examples of it every year that reclassify, but I can't think of a guy that came in who was so physically, mentally, and emotionally mature to where fast forwarding the process by a year really doesn't affect him at all. Like some guys come and you can tell, okay, they need a year with Ramsey Nijum, the strength coach. They need a year eating at that training table to put on the necessary additional size and strength. Cole looks Big 12 ready day one.
Yeah.
And his performance on the floor day one, I think I've told you guys about on our previous episode, but I was there for his very first practice in June when he got here. First day on campus. And I had sat down for all of 2 minutes before he had two pickpocket rip and runs at midcourt, stealing the ball from a senior. We won't name names, but it was two different guys that were transfers. And they're like, who's this kid coming in
It's
here?
going to narrow it down a lot.
He steals the ball like that. He's punching on the other end for a dunk. And it's just like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
We got one here. Now, obviously, with a freshman, particularly a reclassified freshman, you're going to have ups and downs and ebbs and turns and all that along the way. So it's not like every day has been outstanding, but there was a practice day last week when he hit 7 threes.
Man.
And so the point is, you hear about the good stuff. You don't hear about other days where he looks like a freshman. So we got to make sure we temper our excitement a little bit here. But having said that, does he have the mental makeup and maturity to handle more than you would typically throw at a kid his age? Absolutely. Does he have the physical maturity to step in with some of these big guys and be a high-flying wing rebounder that can jump in and get you 5 boards and steal extra possessions? Does he have a chance to be our best three-point shooter? All of these things could be true. We'll wait and see what it looks like over the course of the next 5 months, but I'm not the least bit surprised that he has continued to impress and carve out a big role, because on that very first day in June, to me, he looked like already our third or fourth best player. And
That's
that
awesome.
was
Yeah.
a small sample size, okay? But he had the quote that same week when he was introduced to the media, and obviously it's not his quote. He took it from somewhere, but old basketball cliche, once you become the best player in the gym,
Find
It's time to
another.
find a new gym.
Yeah.
And he didn't say that braggadociously. There was nothing cocky about it. He just said, when asked, why did you reclassify? Well, I was ready for the next challenge. And he's come to Kansas and proven he belongs. He fits in. And now we can't wait to see what it looks like. But I would say with all these guys and with this team in general, as they take on the most ambitious non conference schedule in the country, yeah, we're going to have a couple knots on our head at some point, in the first month or so, that there's going to be some growing pains. But man, I love, as we talked about when we were out at Hy-Vee the other day, the individual room for growth with so many of these guys and the collective room for growth. It's just going to get incrementally better and better and better as the year goes on, especially with a guy like Bill Self growing these guys up and coaching them along the way.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I'm excited about Cole Rosario, right? I just thought Bill Self does not like to essentially hand over the reins to freshmen very often, and feel he's doing this with essentially two different freshmen, right? He has Darren Peterson and Cole Rosario out there, and it's like, hey, you guys can go and do your thing. So I love the fact that Cole Rosario has come in and just absolutely skyrocketed in terms of in the eyes of Bill Self, and he's gained that trust to start at least against Louisville. Now it could be sort of an experimental thing, but I hope to see him start for the foreseeable future. You brought up Big 12 Media Days, a lot of great stuff. I know that you got a chance to talk to Clark Kellogg as well. We
Yeah.
talked to Clark Kellogg, that was really cool. But
I
did it,
photobombed your conversation
you
with Clark
did? I know.
Kellogg.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I saw you
Yeah.
gave a little peace sign. That was but I wanted to ask you about was there anything in particular that Bill Self, because obviously that's where he broke the news, is that where
Yeah.
Cole
Yeah.
Rosario is starting. Anything else that Bill Self might have said that kind of stuck out to you about this upcoming season in terms of where he thinks that they're sitting, or just anything like that?
A lot of the stuff that he said, we've heard being around the guys, on a daily basis and being around coach, but he continues to not be shy about throwing out his praise and confidence over what he can comfortably put on Darren Peterson's plate in terms of leadership,
Right.
in terms of his ability to kind of run this team. And he talks about how everything in terms of how he sees the game is slowed down at a rate that we talk about typical freshman with Cole Rosario a second ago. Most freshmen, no matter how physically mature or whatever, that the game moves at such a high speed. Darren's obviously so skilled that it's going to not hit him like a fast break like it would most guys. But then on top of that, what Coach Sip's talking about is he sees the game in a way that's truly elite.
Yeah.
His basketball IQ is one thing, but his ability to process, see the floor, see what's opening up in front of him, see where the matchups, as he commands and attracts so much attention, are going to create maybe two passes away, but something on the back line. He sees all of that like the chess pieces on the board,
Yeah.
right? He's like the Bobby Fischer of basketball. Okay. And so I think when Coach Self says that, as a guy who's truly elite at seeing all 10 guys on the floor in slow motion, which is something not every coach can do, that's great praise because he sees something unique, set apart, and special about this prospect beyond all the physical gifts that we see on the YouTube highlight mixtapes and
Right.
all that.
That makes sense. Brian Hanni, voice of the Jayhawks, joins the show here in studio. And Brian, let's go ahead and flip it to the game that's going on here in Lawrence.
It's
This,
about time, man.
I
This is the
know,
biggest game in 20 years.
I know. Trust me, I know. I said this in my opening segment, and I'm curious to know if you share my sentiment. Yes, it's the biggest game in 20 years, but I think considering all the bowl games and
Yeah.
all the college game day and the big new kickoff and the Oklahoma State game where that sent Kansas to a bowl game, this to me is the biggest game in Lance Leipold's career. Do you share that same sentiment in terms of again, I know people don't love throwing around the term legacy games, and there's going to be a lot more games in the near future, but just talk about how big of a game this is
Yeah.
just for, I guess, personal agendas for K State fans, for
Sure.
KU fans. How big of a game is this truly, do you think?
Well, first off, when I said 20 years, there was a little hyperbole there, but it's probably the biggest game in 16 years.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
right.
there was more on the line maybe in the '07 season. And we're going to have Kerry Meyer in here later today when this show is done, and we can talk to him about that '07 run. But yeah, it's certainly the biggest game that Lance Leipold's had in his 5 seasons here, I feel, because it's one that it's not just about winning on Saturday and moving one game closer to bowl eligibility. It's the completion and the closing of the gap that, for all other intents and purposes, has been closed in
Yeah.
terms of recruiting, facilities, momentum around your program, perception around the league. he's beaten just about everybody he could set out to beat in the league, right?
Yeah.
First year goes down to Austin and wins. A couple years ago, he beats Oklahoma. Jason Benetti's call, it's a generational win for Kansas.
Yeah.
It was. And so I'm not saying that like the opponent and the challenge is bigger than winning at Texas or beating Oklahoma. Some would say that the win at West Virginia was one of the biggest wins because it was kind of a catapulting, propelling type game that led you on a path to back bowl seasons and
Yeah.
getting you back on the map. There are other ones you could circle or point to, but this one, in terms of perception, you haven't just closed the gap, you've slammed the door. You've bridged the gap, you've completed it, you've walked over the bridge, you've finally beaten them.
Yeah.
Because if you continue to talk about how close we're getting, I hate the cliche, but it's so true. Close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, right?
Yeah.
Like we've been
Did you
really
come up with
close.
that?
I did not, yeah, like the Rosario quote. No, the best stuff is always stolen. But the point is, like we're sick of saying, man, we're so close. It's time to step up and win one.
Yeah.
And no matter what it looks like, no matter how many points it's by, this would be the culmination of every other aspect of program growth and ascension and all that. You finally caught up to him and you took down a streak that obviously has been going on for way too long. And you can't put all that on this coaching staff because it's only been a part of a fourth of them,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But I think they probably feel the weight of the previous 12 because it's talked about so much. I'll tell you this much, though, and I want to make sure you listen to this. Eh, They're not overemphasizing this game with the weight of 16 straight defeats on this particular team. For most of these guys, it's their first time playing K-State.
Right.
And that's the truth with a football team that has 50 newcomers on it. For some of these guys, it's their sixth time playing K-State, like Jalen Daniels, right? But for a lot of these guys, they're getting a first taste of it. And so it would be un-Lance-like to throw all your eggs in the basket of this game and make it all about this one game. And I know there's probably a certain portion of your viewership and listenership that wishes that's the case.
Yeah.
But Lance has told me on numerous occasions, if we do that all for one game, how do I get the guys up the next week when Oklahoma State comes to town? Or how do we, ask them to prepare with the same fervor and intensity for the next one? So I appreciate that steady hand at the wheel approach. But make no mistake, they've done little subtle things to
Sure.
emphasize this game. You've heard about them putting the final 5 minutes of regulation of last year's game that KU kind of gave away in Manhattan on loop throughout the building. You've heard about Bill Self coming in and speaking to the team. That's
Yeah.
not something you roll out for the Wagner game, right? And it was interesting because Lance said, a lot of the messaging and the principles that Coach Self shared with the guys is the same stuff that he and his staff have been saying, but it tends to resonate more when it's a different voice from outside your program, and certainly one that carries so much weight, respect, and reverence. So that was cool too. But yeah, is it a must-win game to prove that we are who we think we are and we've made all these strides? Kind of feels that way. Now,
Sure.
the strides aren't gone if you don't win the game because we're still crossing off wins over all these other teams that the previous regimes of the Beatty and the Weiss era weren't getting. You're still winning on the road with regularity in ways that was deemed impossible for a decade here.
Right.
That
Yeah.
stuff doesn't go away. But in terms of perception within the state, a state that right now they have dominated in terms of recruiting of late and all of that,
Yeah.
like this really drives home the final piece of the tangible puzzle that the gap has been bridged, things have been closed, and we want to be considered on an even plane going forward, not looking at the bowl totals and the stuff of the past, but going forward, we want to feel like this is just as much our state as it is theirs.
100%. And I liked what Lance said about, he was asked about the rivalry. I believe it was Kevin Flaherty who asked him the question. He said, well, does that mean that we don't play hard against other teams? And
Right.
it's like, I understand that. Like, it makes sense, right? Because it's, he's not really using the motivation on a historical level for these guys, but more so on a personal level of like, hey, we gave this game away last year. We can't do that again, right? And it's sort of one of those things where it's like, look, we did that a lot last year, and this is sort of the crowning moment of that. So I like the fact that he's using recent history and on a personal level with that last 5 minutes, and they're just kind of playing it on a loop.
Yeah.
I do love that. Wanted to talk more in depth about Kansas State. Obviously, KU is really good off a bye. They've won 5 in a row off a bye. So it was Michael Swain who said it's like an unstoppable force against an immovable object, with Kansas's 5-game win streak coming off byes, and then also the 16-game win streak for K-State. But tell me a little bit more about K-State. I understand, obviously, Avery Johnson We know Avery Johnson.
Yeah.
Dylan Edwards is going to be out for this game. Austin Romaine on the defensive side of the ball is very, very good. Give us a couple keys to the game of what you think needs to happen for Kansas to come out of this one victorious.
I've never been one of those guys that when you do these interviews 24 hours ahead of time gets too caught up in the weather because, hey, storm systems and fronts can move through and it's
I'm an
not
irrational person, and I'm super caught up in it.
right. I see a lot of talk about it. And we're doing this show today in the beautiful new studios at 916 Massachusetts. And I'm looking out the street and it's like they're building arcs or something. It's coming down. But tomorrow, if you believe, some of the weather stuff, there could be steady rain throughout, but it may only accumulate to like a third of an inch. So how much of a factor is I don't know.
Sure.
But does it make you a little paranoid as a Kansas lifer that has watched KU at times shoot themselves in the foot on a wet field,
Oh yeah.
slipping to catch a punt at the 1 yard line and turning it over right there, or just knowing that K State, and I hate this stat, we always have to bring it up every year, but like since 1999, they lead the nation in non-offensive touchdowns. They get blocks of punts or kick returns or pick sixes.
Yeah.
Heck, last week, 2 weeks ago when they played their last game, they got two
Yeah. Right.
non-offensive touchdowns. And so if we perceive this to be a matchup in 2025 where Kansas has decided advantages at more position groups than we can say in 16 years. First time they've been favored in the matchup in 16 years.
Yeah.
But if you really break it down like position group by position group, I do think they have the edge way more so than we've been able to say in almost 20 years. But if there's one great equalizer, neutralizer, whatever, is if the game gets kind of muddied up, not literally, we have a turf field, but if it gets kind of mucked up
Yeah.
by tough to throw the ball deep downfield, tough to get good footing, all that. I don't know that it gets to that point. So I don't want to spend any more time talking about it.
Sure.
But it's certainly on my mind. I'm sure it's on the coaches' minds. I heard one of the K-State coaches say he hopes it rains like crazy.
Yeah. Right.
But because, it would be very K-State like an opportunistic team that's fourth in the nation in fumble recoveries, that on a wet track, on a day where it's kind of a little bit tougher to hang on to the ball, they capitalize.
Right.
We can't do that. We can't allow them to do that. And so the biggest takeaway here is we got to find a way to not make some of the mistakes that have been the calling card and the bread and butter for K-State to break our backs for the last 15, 16 years. Not that some of those games required that to happen. In some cases, that just led to a 5 touchdown win instead of a 3 touchdown win for
Right.
K-State. But in this case, in what we expect to be a close game, at least on paper, the tipping point, the difference could be a team that doesn't shoot itself in the foot, that doesn't give away an extra possession, that doesn't set up a short field for the opposition, because in some regards it might be tough to move the ball. I heard you talk about establishing the run when I was first walking in after you made me stand in the rain for 10 minutes. It was raining, it was cold. No, I'm teasing. But you're spot on, and that's why I'm so glad Highshot came back 2 weeks ago and looked as good as he did. They didn't expect to use him that much. They didn't expect him to look that good. They
Yeah.
didn't expect Le'Shawn to get a little bit nicked up in that game. And all of those factors led to what we saw in Lubbock out of Highshot. It's not like it was headline grabbing, but it was eyebrow raising
Yeah.
because he was back for the first time in a month and he looked like the guy with some juice that you want Daniel Highshaw to be. And so if he has to carry the mail tomorrow, obviously, that's a guy you trust. You hope you can, have more complimentary football to where you're not in predictable passing downs like we were so often in Lubbock, and they could pin their ears back and come get us. So we'll see. I know there's, concerns up front on the offensive line, not just based on performance in Lubbock, but Calvin Clement's health, which is in question at the time of this show today. And what do you have to do in moving guys around if that's the case and you're without your left tackle? We'll see. But obviously, Enrique Cruz and Gorsica are guys that got to step it up and flip it over if you're Enrique
Yeah.
to the left side. So we'll see what happens with that. But that's definitely a possibility if Clements, who's listed as questionable at the time of our taping, is indeed unable to go. But this game means a lot to him. Obviously, he's a Kansas kid, and we'll see if he can tough it out. So those are some of my thoughts. It's a K-State team that still has more than enough talent to come in here and extend the streak. It's a K-State team that still has more than enough incentive. Streak's important to these guys.
Yeah.
It really is. It's important to their fan base. It's important to their athletic department. They love this. They're closing in on the all-time record for an in-state rivalry streak. Having said that, what's more important to K-State is how do we get bowl eligible? And if they lose this game on Saturday, suddenly they got to find 3 wins in their last 4, and they'll probably be the underdogs in at least 2 of those
Right.
games. So this game, more so than the streak, is a lifeline to bowl eligibility for them. Does Kansas need it more and want it more? I'd hope so, but there's a lot of incentive on the K-State side too. So I can't wait. Buckle up. It's going to be a heck of a day.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I guess I haven't even thought about how K-State is motivating their guys if they're using the streak as motive. I'm sure they are. And I'm sure you're tapped into some of the K-State guys.
I haven't talked to Wyatt or Stan about that specifically yet,
Mhm.
but I've read the clippings and it seems like they're talking about it way more than our guys are.
Really
Now,
interesting. Yeah.
now, should the team has the 16-game streak talk about it more? Probably because they're
Yeah.
proud of it. But it's interesting whether those clippings, press clippings and quotes were induced by media questions and therefore they had to talk about it,
Right.
or whether it's just more on their minds. Our guys didn't talk much at all about,
Yeah.
man, wouldn't it be great to be the team that snaps the streak? Jalen really downplayed it and said, I'm just excited about Saturday because it's my chance to go out and play the sport I love, and it's our next opponent and all that. He did say on Hawk Talk a day after his comments were kind of downplaying the importance of KUK State. He did say he hopes to play the game of his life on Saturday, and I thought
Yeah.
that was a good
That's
quote. But
awesome.
he may hope to play that every day.
Yeah.
But wouldn't that be great? Because whether he's willing to admit it or not, a huge part of how we'll remember him will be, hey, did he finally get this streak over?
Yeah.
Or did he be a part of 6 years in which we didn't beat him? Not that it's defining or anything like that. I mean, he's got so many things to be proud of, second to Riesing in almost every category. And hopefully, he gets Kansas to a bowl game, plays in the bowl game, looks great, and gets his own bowl win because obviously he didn't get to play in the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. There's
Right.
other things we will remember him for. But you can't convince me this wouldn't be a huge feather in his cap if he got this one done. And you can't convince me that there'd feel like there was a little something missing if he doesn't have that.
Yeah.
That's my opinion, not his, not Lance's.
For sure.
But I think it's important.
Yeah, he's got the stats. But he doesn't have. And I don't mean this in like a mean way, but he doesn't have the accolades in terms of he's never won a bowl game by himself. He's never beaten K-State. He never beat Missouri. So it's like you got to think that's probably in the back of his mind is like, oh well, I at least want to do one of or all of those things, right? So that makes sense. Brian Hanni, or Joe, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you're always remembered for a handful of moments.
Yes,
We had Riesing on this couch a couple of weeks ago, and he ran through his top 3. And with JD, obviously, we'll always remember for the Texas game.
Yeah,
and
right.
The catch by Casey and all that. He and his teammates bring up the West Virginia game a lot.
Oh,
the
really?
Walk-off by Kobe Bryant, more than you might think. Because, again, like I said earlier, it was kind of a liftoff point for them.
Of course, yeah.
Wouldn't you love for this to be one of his moments? And don't you
Yes.
think a win of any kind to get this awful streak over would instantly become one of his moments?
Yeah.
In a season where he's been one of the most efficient guys in America. And it's going to be hard tomorrow against such a capable defense on a wet day and all that. But if he could turn in a legacy game, it's instantly one of his top 3 moments, instantly one of the things he's remembered by. I want that for him. I want that for the rest of these guys that have been around for a while. I hope they can go out and get it.
100%. Brian, let us know what you got coming up. Obviously, you alluded to it. You got Kerry Meyer coming in studio for Haney and the Hawks. Give us a preview of what is to come.
That one may not come out for a few days, but we're going to tape it today. And the beauty of those conversations is he's coming in before the K-State game, but we're not talking about the K-State game. They're all evergreen conversations about his career, about his life now, that kind of thing. But it is kind of neat when we can get these guys in studio. We're so proud of what Chad Boger and Gabe and all you guys have built in this amazing studio. I swear every time I come in here, you've added something, including this awesome new desk today. So Kerry, he's excited. He was like, man, what do I wear?
That's all. Yeah, right.
We can get lunch after. This is cool, man. So we're proud of it. And I think you'll enjoy that conversation because he's definitely one of the all-time greats. And to me, can you find a better example in the history of Kansas athletics in any sport of a guy who lost his job, humbly accepted a different role, and then went on to be as excellent as
and
Kerry
excelled
Meyer.
at that secondary role.
Set records at that role.
It's insane.
Yeah, I can't find one.
Neither can I.
Write us. Send in your emails to kansasnation.com. I don't think there's a finer example.
I have nobody. Absolutely. Brian Haney, voice of the Jayhawks. Appreciate you coming on, man. I know you got to run, but thanks so much and have a great call this weekend.
Thanks so much. And thanks to Nate Miller and Miller Retirement Group, sponsors these reports each and every week. We appreciate you, Nate.
Absolutely. More after this. We got Shreyas Laddha from the Kansas City Star coming in studio right here on Rock Chalk Sports on Kansas Nation. Welcome back into Rock Chalk Sports here on KansasNation.com. Brian, you look a little different. I'm just kidding. This is Shreyas Laddha from the Kansas City Star joining the show. He joins the show every Friday. Appreciate you coming on, man. And this is a big weekend for KU athletics, right? I mean, you got KU baseball taking on K-State, KU volleyball at Allen Fieldhouse against K-State, KU football as well. But I wanted to talk about KU basketball because tonight is the first official look that we're going to see. Now, you can say late night is the first official look, but this is the first time we're actually going to see like real basketball being played in an exhibition game against Louisville. Nobody really knows, right? Because Louisville, they have essentially 4 brand new starters and one guy who's coming back in Javon Hadley. But we know that they're 14th in KenPom. They're 11th right now in the AP poll. I want to talk to you about what you want to see out of this Kansas squad and what they could potentially pull out of this exhibition game. Because right now, as we know it, you were one of the first ones to kind of break this news. Well, I guess Bill Self was at Big 12 Media Days. Yeah. Cole Rosario is going to be starting. So what do you want to see out of this Kansas squad? And I guess, what do you think the biggest jump is going to be from last year to this year out of this Kansas squad?
Yeah, I want to see the athleticism kind of, look pop off the screen. I feel like last year they really missed it overall with the roster they had. I felt like it was an old roster. They didn't run the ball up and down the court much. I think that's going to change with Darren Peterson at the helm. I want to see Darren Peterson have a good game. Not to compare and contrast here, but DeBonza, Cam Boozer, both guys dropped 30. I'm not saying he needs to drop 30, but I'm expecting a double-digit game. I'm expecting him to take over at points to kind of showcase the Darren Peterson experience. I want to see if the shooting is better than advertised. For me, that's one of the real concerns with this team. I mean, they shot 2 of 15 in late night. Last year, they were horrible in late night, and then it became a thing all year. Right now on the roster, the only guy who shoots above, I think, 33% from 3 in college ball was Trey White last
I
year.
believe so, yeah.
Yeah,
Which is like he
which
took
is
like 1
yeah,
3 a
he took
game,
like
maybe.
one and a half, 3 game basically. And then Cole Rosario on paper is a good shooter, and Darren Peterson on paper are good shooters, but we have no idea if that translates to the Kansas game, like the college game. But also on top of that, there's a difference between being a 33% 3-point shooter and a 36, 37, 38,
Right.
right? You want Peterson to be on the upper end of the 30s. And same thing with Rosario, especially if there's a lot of question marks. So those are the things I'm looking for. I'm looking to see how good Cole Rosario looks. The hype around him has been unreal. I've gotten the chance to know him, people around him. I've heard really good things about him, and he really works his tail off. I mean, I wrote a story this summer about an OTE coach looking forward to him leaving OTE because he kept on torching his team. He was like, "Thank God I don't have to play him
Right.
anymore." Like that's
Get this guy out of here.
yeah, he was basically saying that, and he coached him too a little bit in one of the camps. So, really excited to watch him play. Just excited to watch basketball again, man. I've missed watching Kansas basketball just in the sense of like excitement around it. I think last year's team didn't have as much excitement. Obviously, they were ranked preseason #1, but Darren Peterson's a bona fide NBA guy. Last year's squad didn't have any of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Self-proclaimed basketball psycho Shreyas Laddha joins the show here in studio, and I wanted to talk about something that Bill Self was asked about at Big 12 Media Days, and it's sort of topical because KU is playing Louisville, but Louisville, they just got a transfer out of the G League, which is sort of an interesting new wrinkle that we're starting to see. What are your thoughts on this? Because Bill obviously said, I don't know what the hell we're doing, right? It's and in the world of NIL and the transfer portal, where nobody knows what they're doing, it's gotten even worse. Now they definitely don't know what they're doing. I want to know your thoughts on this in particular. And is this something we're going to see more in the future? And is this kind of like an untapped well, if you will, that KU could potentially start doing?
I mean, Bill Self wouldn't even really say anything bad about it because he said we
Sure.
might be doing the same
Right,
thing in
yeah,
like a
right.
year and 6 months or whatever. I mean, that's just good recruiting. I mean, UConn coach Dan Hurley went and disparaged it. I think Rick Pitino said something similar. But the reality of the situation is any competitive advantage you can get, getting a guy that's been in the G League for multiple years and has college eligibility, might as well go out there and get it, right?
Yeah.
I think it's a little unfair, and I think there should be some regulation in the sense of like what you can pick and what you can't pick from the G League. But I don't know what to make of it either, right?
Sure.
Because we're also talking about bringing guys who played multiple years in European leagues, like Paul Mbaya is like he's 22 years old, and we're
Yeah.
considering him a freshman.
Yeah. No,
Like
exactly.
that's a
Right.
grown man. Yeah. Uh, and I mean, like it's the same
Yeah.
thing.
Where is
How
the line,
yeah, where's the line?
essentially?
Like how
Yeah.
different is it than just bringing a guy who's played multiple years? Like I would argue the EuroLeague is much better of a league than the G League. You know, like
100%. Yeah.
it's the second best basketball league in the world, and so you're
Yeah.
picking somebody
But
up
it's just
from there.
weird because it's domestic.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
100%. So it's so much weirdness to this kind of ambiguity. It feels like a weird Wild West, and I think what's ended up going to happen eventually is going to be somebody's going to push the boundary far enough. Somebody's going to pick up an NBA player, something stupid like that,
Yeah.
and
I was gonna say, does
finally,
Andre you remember Andre Ingram?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's
Does he
37
have any
years old.
eligibility left? He's like 40 years old now.
I mean, KD probably has a couple years of college basketball left. He could come back, right?
Why not?
But I mean, like somebody's gonna do something stupid like that, and then the NCAA is gonna have to step in and set some real rules and regulations. I respect Louisville for going out and they're doing it. I mean, why not push the boundaries?
Sure.
Push the boundaries until somebody tells you no. That's the goal in college sports, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You got to push it until you get a no from somebody. And right now, I think teams are going to continue to push it to bring in guys from the G League, bring in guys who can help them from overseas. I'm okay with it. There's no regulations. It sucks, but it is what it is.
It is what it is. Absolutely. I know it is so weird. And like you said, it's the wild, wild west right now. And just when we thought we were starting to put the worms back into the can with, the Deloitte stuff and the NIL and the rev share cap, all of a sudden a new thing starts. And it's just so weird. I want to talk more KU basketball. You brought up a guy in Paul Mbaya or Mbia, however you pronounce it. I believe it's Mbia. With a guy who has that insane amount of length, right? Because his standing reach is damn near 10 feet tall.
Yeah.
But also we've heard that he's a little raw and still needs time to develop. Where's his role going to fit? Because I personally want him to, now granted, if he doesn't develop as much as we need him to, then I think, let him sit, let him practice. But also I would kind of like Flory at the 4 potentially, and Paul Mbia at the 5. But then that kind of leaves Trey White on an island by himself. Where do you think Paul Mbia is going to fit, and what do you think the minutes distribution is going to look like for a guy like that with all of the length in the world, the talent? I guess talent isn't the right word, but the development isn't quite there yet.
I mean, to be honest with you, I hope we're not watching a lot of Flory at the 4 lineups. I just don't think his shooting is there right
Sure,
now.
yeah.
I mean, I know he's been working on it since before he arrived in Kansas last year, but until I see him switching 10-footers like he's Dirk, I'm not going to trust Flory to play the 4 right now.
Right.
I mean, I just think, you hope he can play backup big minutes, especially against like bigger opponents. I feel like we could see him play extended minutes because Flory might get pushed around a little bit. Just because I think, obviously Flory is 6'9". It's great height, but there are some guys that are 7 foot in this league, and I think those guys will be a challenge for Flory to defend. And I mean, he's not he's tall, but he's not the biggest dude. I mean,
Right.
I think Paul was more built than Flory is in that sense. So he brings in a little bit of brute strength that I think KU needs in the inside presence. I expect him to be a guy that, will probably play 15 minutes a game.
Sure.
I mean, a couple years ago, what did they do with was it Christian Parker Brown?
Oh, Parker Brown.
Yeah, I think
Legend.
I think Paul can be a like
Probably a much better
version
Parker
of
Brown.
that. Yeah, no disrespect to Parker Brown.
Role wise.
Yeah, role wise, I
wise,
kind of
Parker
see
Brown.
something similar. Like, he just comes in, plays big minutes that you need him to play, and work on his development a little bit. Because I'd be surprised. I don't think Bill wants to play Bryson Tiller at the 5. And I think he's more suited to play the 4 or even kind of a bigger 3.
Yeah, absolutely. Shreyas Laddha, KC Star, joins the show here in studio. One more basketball question for you, obviously because it was such a big thing. Big 12 Media Days just happened. Was there anything else that Bill Self or any of the players or even any of the other Big 12 coaches might have said that stuck out to you that you maybe didn't know beforehand?
Well, I mean, I was talking to Flory for a little bit one-on-one. I thought it was really interesting. He was saying that Peterson is out there recruiting guys well past his class. He was talking to Tyron Stokes,
It's awesome.
trying to bring him in next year. I actually have a mailbag that just came out this morning. Taylor Kinney literally just got off the phone with Stokes this past week, and he was like, his pitch was like, "Hey man, we're both only going to be playing college ball for 10 months.
Yeah.
Let's play it together." We were on the same 8th grade AAU team. Is what he told me.
Really? I didn't know that.
And they want to play. He was like, "Let's play together. Let's grow with each other, and let's go to the league together." That was kind of his pitch. Obviously, I think Kentucky's the forefront leader right now,
Yeah.
according to recruiting experts. But things change so rapidly, right? But I think it's really cool. Peterson's going out there. We know he's going to be a guy that's gone next. You know, come April or
Yeah.
whatever. But he's
Hopefully. If
really
not, something has gone terribly wrong.
no, I would just be shocked. I
Yeah.
mean, like, I think
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
no, like, even tomorrow, God forbid, if something happens,
Yes.
I think he would still just get picked
Of
in the
course. Yeah.
top 5 because of the level of what his potential out can be. But I mean, I think that's really cool, right? A guy who's not going to be at Kansas very long is going out there and recruiting guys that are going to be at Kansas when he's not there. And he's using his influence, I think, is really cool. I mean, like, he knows all of these guys who are ranked really highly. So I came away really impressed with that. Flory was saying that he works up pretty closely with Jock and
Yeah.
Peterson as well. Like, they work out a lot together. Like, the one-on workouts includes Flory a lot of times, which I thought was
That's
cool.
awesome. Yeah.
It seems like they've developed a pretty good relationship, and I'm really excited to see the fruition of the Flory TP 2-man game.
Yeah, I know I said one more basketball question, but I know you did just have a one-on-one interview with Taylor Kinney. A lot of it was 6'7" talk. I'm aware, but how did that conversation go?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was really cool. Like, he's a guy that obviously has a brand. After I got off the phone, the OTE guy that I talked to, he was like, "Hey man, what's your address?" And I was like, "Why? Sure." I said it, and he was like, "Wait, why do you need?" I was like, "Wait, do you need my address?" And he was like, "Oh, Taylor wants to send the 6'7" water," and I was like, I can't
Yeah.
actually get the 6'7" water. I
Oh
will pay
man.
for the 6'7"
Sure.
water
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's unethical on my part."
Yeah. I can't get
And
gifts. Sure. I get it.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean,
You're a better person than I was. My favorite flavor is free. So.
Hey, free is always good, but this guy's like, journalistic integrity comes first.
Sure.
I
Sure.
like
Sure.
to
Sure.
say. But it was interesting to talk to him about his brand building and how much he's never really expected 6'7" to kind of blow up. I mean, he's a million plus followers on
Yeah.
Instagram. 6'7" is by far one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. He doesn't even
Same.
tell me, like I don't understand it. He doesn't really know what it means. He told me he referenced it and it blew up after that.
That's very funny. Yeah.
And he was like, I asked him, one of the funniest things was I asked him, "Where's your water come from for the package?" And he was like, "I have no idea, dude."
Oh my gosh.
So
that's so
I'm a little concerned where the water is coming
Right.
from.
It's coming from Flint, Michigan,
Yes. I hope it's not. But listen, I'll have a story next week on the whole 6'7" thing and all that, and when I talk to him. And I'm hoping to get a package of the water and trying it and do a little TikTok on the taste test. And everyone's
Yeah.
like, "What if the water tastes bad?" I was like, "Well, it's a being experience either way. I have
Yeah,
no idea where it's
true.
coming from." But
It's like Skyline Chili.
yeah, yeah,
You gotta
yeah,
try it
yeah,
just to
yeah.
try, you know?
But I think it's really cool. He's built a brand at a level that I think a lot of people don't have. I don't think Darren Peterson has 1 million followers on Instagram. I don't think anybody on KU who is close to 1 million followers on Instagram.
Yeah.
I think it's a testament to how cool he's embraced the side of being a non-player as well. I mean, like, he talks about how he's a basketball player first, but there are other situations. These guys are not just basketball players.
Yeah.
They're business people, and he's had that fact in his mind since he started playing ball. And I think I give him major props for it. Make as much money as you can, man. You never know what can happen.
Absolutely. 100%. Wanted to flip it over to football. Obviously, huge game coming up. I had mentioned this. Brian had mentioned this earlier in the show. This potentially could be the biggest game of Lance Leipold's career, right? Just at this point, right? Obviously, there's going to be bigger games ahead, but to this point, you can consider all the bowl games and all the other big games. This one right here is probably the biggest one of his career. Give us a preview of this game, because we know that K-State, this is one of their worst teams that we've seen in a long time, probably since the Ron Prince era. Kansas is primed to beat them. This is the first time KU is even favored on the money lines in 16 years, I believe. It was that was the last time that Kansas was even favored. Give us a preview of this game and just talk about how big of a game this is in terms of legacy. I know we hate to throw that word around, but legacy for both Lance and Jalen.
I mean, it's a humongous game, right? Everyone on the Kansas side will downplay it because that's just how Lance Leipold of the program is. They don't want to put a immense amount of pressure on playing a rival. And that's one thing I've noticed over the years, right? Like, Lance and the guys, most of them will not talk up a rivalry. And obviously, I think a little different was the Missouri game. They seem to talk it up a little more.
Sure, sure,
But
sure.
that
Yeah.
was years after coming back. But I think that's the one difference between the K-State and the Kansas program, right? K-State is out there trash talking Kansas.
Yeah.
When I ask Cam Pickett, "Hey man, what do you think of that?" He just shrugs it off. He's like, "Well, he thinks highly of his team. We think highly of our
Yeah,
team."
right. Is it as big as of a rivalry as
yeah.
Western Michigan and Eastern Michigan? Like,
Yeah, but
classic Mac guy. Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, like, I think it's a huge game. I think it's important that Kansas wins this game because this is the worst K-State team they've had in a long time. The reality of the situation is if you can't beat K-State with Jalen playing this well, when are you going to beat K-State? Right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of question marks on next year's team, and the biggest question is who's going to be the quarterback next year.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody, no matter who they choose, is going to have a season as good as Jalen Daniels is putting together right now. He's had
Absolutely.
a special season, 18 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He's putting up numbers that are top 5 quarterback season. I think it's been under the radar a little bit nationally just because Kansas has not lived up to the expectation of what Jalen's put out. But I think it's really big, not just for bowl contention, but it's also a big thing to showcase that you can win rivalry games.
Mhm.
Lance Leipold has got to showcase that. I think he hasn't done that in his tenure. Beating K-State will go a long way towards that. I mean, you've had 2 really close games the last 2 years. Tough way to lose. You've got to be able to showcase that A, you can close games, and B, you can do it in a season where you are favored to do that such thing. And I think it's going to be an interesting game because I think the weather is going to be a massive issue.
Yeah.
Kansas right now has struggles to defend the run. Obviously, Dillon Edwards is out, but it doesn't really matter who tends to be at running back or who can run for the opposing team.
Well, they have Avery
because-
Johnson too.
Yeah,
who
Avery
likes to
Johnson.
run.
I mean, like,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't seem to matter much against this KU defense because they're giving up almost 200 yards on the ground
Right.
and almost 2 touchdowns a game, right? So it's going to be a massive task for this defense to come out there and stop that run game. And on the flip side, because of the rain, KU's run game is going to have to be better than it's shown at different times of the season. It's been up and down, obviously. Highshaw coming back has been a big, big help, I think, for the KU run game.
Yeah.
Because then you could have that back duo of LaShawn Williams and Highshaw, obviously, withstanding LaShawn being healthy because he's questionable. But, I think the weather favors K-State a little bit, right? Because that means the ball is out of Jalen's hands. You want the ball in Jalen's hands. You
Yeah.
want him to make plays, whether that's running or passing. And I think, I go in with this mindset of, I think Kansas goes out there and wins because of Jalen Daniels. I don't
Ooh.
feel confident about anything else, but I feel confident that Jalen Daniels is about to have a game of a lifetime.
Yeah, well, we certainly hope so, right? Shreyas Laddha, Kansas City Star, joins the show, and I like the fact that you talked about the weather. Jalen and Lance and everybody, they're kind of saying like, oh well, weather doesn't matter. It's it's just one other element. It's a part of the game. One guy, or at least 2 guys, who are probably thinking about the weather is Daniel Highshaw and LeSean Williams, right? Because in theory, if it gets really rainy and slippery, you have to be able to establish a run, which has been a big issue for Kansas in the past. Talk about how big of a game that Highshaw Williams has to have just establishing a run against a pretty good K-State defense.
I think it's humongous. I think it's a big, big thing that Kansas is going to have to do from basically kickoff, just because I think it's going to be wet and rainy the entire day tomorrow. I mean, look at it right now.
Yeah.
I can only imagine it's going to be much worse tomorrow. It seems like the
You
forecast
came here in a
is-
boat.
basically. But you want to see these guys averaging 4 or 5 yards a carry. You want to make it easier in Jalen because right now the worst thing is these guys don't establish the run. Then you bring in a Cole Ballard, Isaiah Marshall for the snap, and everyone knows what they're going to do with the ball. They're
Yeah,
gonna have
right.
a quarterback keeper. They're going to
Yeah.
get
Oh,
8
Cole
or 9
Ballard's in.
yards.
I wonder what's going to happen.
Like
Yeah.
they haven't passed the ball yet. Like maybe they pull out the pass play
Yeah.
this time, but I feel like it makes it very one-dimensional, the offense. They're reliant on Jalen Daniels to go through things with his legs, do things with his arm. You want Highshaw to look as good as he looked against Texas Tech. I think he was
Yeah.
did a tremendous job with how rough the offensive line play was that game. And you also want LeSean Williams to kind of be a good complimentary back. I don't think he's the guy who can be a feature guy, as we've seen without Daniel Highshaw, but I think he's a guy that can really be a nice change of pace back for Kansas. And in this game, I think establishing the run is going to go a long way towards, keeping K-State off the field. You don't want drives that end quickly or end in one play. Like, it's great. If you can get a Jalen Daniels to Emmanuel Henderson touchdown to open the game, That's fantastic.
Yeah,
But
right.
the issue is you don't want the Kansas defense on the field. Like, that's my
Right.
thing.
Yeah,
I think the
yeah.
less time the Kansas defense is on the field, the better
It
chance of
almost
KU winning this game.
yeah, the 92-yarder almost hurt the Kansas
Yes.
defense because they're
Yeah.
like, "Man, we gotta go back out
Yes,
there again."
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Time and I think that's one thing with K-State is I think they have every game except one that they have lost the time of possession battle,
Mm.
they've lost.
Okay, yeah.
So I think it's an interesting thing to look at there because it's clear that both sides need to win the time of possession, I think, to come out on top.
Yeah, 100%. Before we let you go, Shreyas, wanted to just get your prediction. Like you said, you think that Kansas will win if Jalen Daniels has a Jalen Daniels-esque
Yeah.
kind of game. The way that the weather's planning out, the way that what you're seeing of KU coming off of buys, and because they're 5-0 coming off of bye, or not 5-0, but they're won their last 5 games coming off of buys. What's your prediction for this game? What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, I think my prediction was like 31-27 Kansas. I
Okay.
feel like it's going to be one of those weird games where like something happens in the last
So you're
moment
saying the
again.
over is going to hit? No? I'm just kidding. I know. I'm just
This
kidding.
is not gambling advice. This is not gambling advice. I mean, hey, if somebody's handling my predictions this year, I would like to say I'm 6-1 on the
Sure.
year. Do not look at what I am
Hey.
against the spread. I'm only 4-3.
Fair enough.
according to.
I
But-
am, but well, listen to him and don't listen to me because I am on a very cold streak right now.
Look, I think Kansas comes out on top this game, and I think it's just my belief in Jalen Daniels. I think it's going to be a game that he's going to redeem himself for last year after he had 2 fumbles in the last 5 minutes. And I feel like he's going to come out there and establish that he is the best quarterback in the state, that he is the guy that Kansas fans think he is. And I think he's going to cement his legacy. Everyone downplays the legacy game, but hey, man, this is a game that I know he cares about. I know his family cares about. I know everybody in the locker room cares about. They might not say it out loud, but it is important to be K-State, and it's important to bowl LGBT. It's important to Lance Leipold, and it's important for Jalen Daniels. And I think that's the reason Kansas comes out on top.
100%. Shreyas, you got any big stories that you're working on right now, or just kind of going with it? I mean, it's a busy season, so you're constantly writing about what's happening. But anything coming up at the KC Star?
I have the mailbag. I think probably come out right now, or probably already come out about Taylor Kinney talking about Tyron Stokes. Also have some stuff coming up about Cole Rosario and his what everyone's saying and talking about him and his Steve Rogers nickname, which I think is ridiculous. I think his nickname should be Cooper Flag with a mustache. He looks like Cooper Flag.
No. When you said that on the couch last week, I think I was like,
it's all I can think about is this guy looks like Cooper Flag. But hopefully for Kansas' sake, he plays like Cooper Flag. But I'll have something like that. Obviously, I'll have takeaways from these games and a bunch from the K-State Kansas game. Just looking forward to the next couple of weeks, man. It's been busy, but there's always stuff going on in Kansas athletics, and it makes it more fun.
Absolutely. Shreyas Laddha, Kansas City Star. Appreciate you joining the show, man. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Hey, after this, going to be breaking down KU Louisville as they're going to be tipping off tonight. Sean Kellerman will be on the call. You can listen to that on Sports Radio 810 WHB. That's coming up after this on Rock Chalk Sports on KansasNation.com. Welcome back into Rock Chalk Sports here on KansasNation.com. Big shout out to Miles Schneer and Crown Automotive for being a big time sponsor of this podcast. Great cars, great wine too by Miles Schneer and company. Also shout out to Shreyas Laddha and Brian Hanni for joining the show earlier today. I wanted to talk a little KU basketball before I get into some college football game picks. As KU, they're taking on Louisville tonight in Louisville for an exhibition game, the first official tip-off for, well, quote unquote official. It's an exhibition game, but first official tip off, first official time you get to see these guys in action against another college team. And they're a damn good team. Louisville is. They're ranked number 11 right now in the AP. They're 14 in Ken Palm. And I'll kind of give you a quick breakdown in terms of what we should expect from this Louisville team. Again, we don't know a whole lot about the squad because we haven't seen them play yet. Same with Kansas, right? But I'll give you a breakdown of the presumed starting 5. They got Michael Brown. Kansas has Darren Peterson, number 1 player overall in the class of 25. They have number 8 overall player, Michael Brown Jr. He's going to be their starting point guard for the Cardinals. That's going to be a fun matchup between the two guys. Isaac McNeely, he's a transfer from Virginia, averaged 14.4 points per game last year for Virginia. A really solid player at that 2 spot, a really good shooter as well. So that's going to be a Melvin Council, Isaac McNeely matchup. Going to be quite a bit of fun to watch because I like Melvin Council's upside on the defensive end. You look at his stats on his shooting percentage, they're not super high at the three, they're not super high on the field goal percentage, but I think he's an all-around five-tool kind of player who can really play solid defense. So that's going to be fun to see him kind of locking up Isaac McNeely. Ryan Conwell, he's a transfer from Xavier, going to be playing that three spot. 16.5 points per game last year from Xavier, a really solid player. Once again, that's going to be a Corozario matchup. So this is going to be a real test for a guy who has a lot of experience in college in Ryan Conwell against Corozario, who's just coming out of high school, should still be in high school, but yet he's on campus at Lawrence. A lot of big time, storylines coming out about Corozario being able to get the start after reclassifying, bumping Jaden Dawson down in the lineup. El Marco Jackson's going to be coming off the bench as well. So they have a lot of faith in Corozario, but this is going to be a real test for him. See if he can stop the high octane scorer that Ryan Conwell is. Javon Hadley is the only starter returning for this Louisville Cardinal squad. Everyone else is either a transfer or a freshman. He averaged 12.2 points per game. He's going to be at the 4 spot. So that's going to be him versus Trey White. Going to be a lot of fun of a matchup down low. And then Sonata Fruit, he's actually coming over to Louisville from Lowen Braunschweig. He is coming over from Europe. Averaged 12.6 points per game over there. So that's going to be interesting to see as well in that matchup down low with Flory Bidunga. What I want to see out of this game is I want to see, now you can talk matchups all you want. You can talk about how good of a team Louisville is, right? They don't have the chemistry. It's kind of like Kansas, right? They've been working on the offseason, building that chemistry together. Both of these teams have, but this is going to be their first test against another team as well. And Kansas is still a good team too. We like what we have in this Kansas squad with Flory, with Trey White, with Corozario, with Darren Peterson, Melvin Council. All the guys on the bench are really solid depth pieces. What I want to see from Kansas out of this game is I want to see, surprise, surprise, Darren Peterson. I want to see him take control of this game because I want to see if he can actually do it and if he's up to the task. I know he is. I want to see it put out on action on the court. I want to see him take the reins because Bill Self has never given the reins fully to a freshman before, right? He had Andrew Wiggins come in. He had a ton of different pieces around Andrew Wiggins to be able to have Andrew Wiggins succeed on that team, right? Same with Josh Jackson. Josh Jackson had a ton of different guys built in around him when he was able to come in. Darren Peterson, the only guy that he has coming back from last year is Flory Bidunga, who averaged less than 6 points a game last year. Now, you and I, you the viewer, we know that Flory Bidunga is a lot better than 5.9 points per game, 15 or 13 minutes or whatever it may be. We know Flory Bidunga is going to be an all-star on this squad, but still, you look at the raw stats, there's nobody coming back who made an impact from last year, right? You're losing virtually everybody except for Flory, who was the backup big behind Hunter Dickinson. So Darren Peterson is going to be given the reins. Now, we've heard a lot about the chemistry that's been built between him and Melvin Council and how they believe that they're the best backcourt duo in the entire nation, right? So I'm excited to see that duo take on a very solid Louisville team. Louisville, they're very good on the offensive side of the ball, not really sure what to expect on the defensive end. So it'll be interesting to see how Darren and Melvin, those two guys in particular, are able to carve them up. The distribution of the ball on the offensive side of the ball is going to be very interesting to see. So it's going to be a big game, right? Obviously, this is going to be the first time you're going to be able to see them play actual basketball as opposed to what we saw at late night. I love late night, as you know, but that was a scrimmage against each other, not a lot of defense being played. Now they're going to have to go out there. They're going to have to play defense against a top 15 team in both KenPom and in the AP. It's going to be a very tough game, hostile environment at the Yum Center. The Yum Center is one of my favorite places, not just name-wise, but also environment-wise in the nation. So it's going to be a tough game. And if Kansas loses, I just want to put this out there. If Kansas loses this game, it's not the end of the world. You could pull some stuff from the exhibition games that they've had in years past. Against Illinois, Kansas lost that game a couple years ago, and then against Arkansas last year, you thought, man, this team's not very good at shooting the ball. But there's still going to be a lot of game left. As Bill Self would say, guys, it's only October. A lot of game left, right? A lot of season left, right? So if Kansas goes out and loses this game, I know Kansas fans, Kansas fans like to jump to conclusions, I guess, is probably the best way and the nicest way to put this. If Kansas loses this game, it's not going to be at the end of the world. Darren Peterson's going to have to be an all-star. I want to see Cole Rosario be an all-star, and I want Flory Bidunga to take over down low. I want Flory Bidunga to prove everybody that he is not only one of the best starting 5 men in the nation, but could be a potential NBA lottery pick, because I believe Flory Bidunga has the ability to be able to exceed at the highest level of basketball. So I want to see Flory really take it to these guys down low. But mainly, I want to see Darren Peterson. I want to see how well he is, as how good he is as a facilitator of the ball, as essentially the game manager, if you will, the quarterback of the Kansas offense. I want to see him take over this game. Hey, after this, going to be doing some college football and NFL game picks. You're listening to Rock Chalk Sports on KansasNation.com. Welcome back into Rock Chalk Sports here on KansasNation.com. Big shout out to Miles Schneier and company at Brown Automotive, great partner with us. Also, shout out to Brian Hanni and Shreyas Laddha for joining the show earlier today. A big weekend coming up. KU, K-State on the gridiron here in Lawrence. Also, KU, K-State volleyball going to be going tonight at Allen Fieldhouse. A really exciting time. It's going to be the first time, I believe, in 10, maybe 12 years that they're playing at Allen Fieldhouse. So be sure to get out there and watch Matt Ulmer sing the national anthem, because he's going to be singing it, those silky smooth pipes of Matt Ulmer. Good looking guy, too. Also, KU, K-State baseball. They're going to be playing a little fall ball over this weekend as well. So again, a big, big, big weekend for Kansas athletics. Wanted to roll through some college football game picks for you. I'll roll through the Big 12. I'll start in Ames, Iowa, as BYU. They're going to be taking on Iowa State. BYU, they're ranked number 11. Iowa State is not ranked right now, but since the game is in Ames, Iowa State's actually a 2.5-point favorite. And I love Iowa State on this line. I think Rocco Bex is a fantastic quarterback. I'm not fully bought in on BYU. I don't care. They're ranked number 11 right now. They did just beat their rival in Utah, but also rivalry games can take a lot out of you. So I really like Iowa State in this game, especially since it's at Ames. So give me that -2.5. Is at -115. The public loves it as well. Love the over in this game too. I think it's going to be a high scoring game. 48.5. That's at -112. Love that. Baylor, they're going to be taking on Cincinnati. It's going to be at Cincinnati. Cincinnati's only a 3.5-point favorite in this game. I'm going to go ahead and take the favorites as well. I think Cincinnati is the real deal. Like I said, I wasn't bought in on BYU. I'm bought in on Cincinnati. They are a great team. They are in the Big 12 championship conversation right now. Now, Sawyer Robertson is a very good player. I will give him that. Dave Aranda has really turned it around. He was on the hot seat there for a while in his career, and I think he's turned it around as well. But I like Cincinnati in this game at -3.5. I think this is going to be a touchdown win for Cincinnati. Over/under, not going to touch this. Sean likes to go the over on super high lines. The line's at 67.5. I'm not going to, I mean, if I'm going to, I'm going to hit the under, but also weird stuff happens in these weird Big 12 games. I'm not going to touch the over/under. I'm going to lean towards the under just because 67 is a ridiculous, ridiculous line. Texas Tech, they're taking on Oklahoma State. It's in Lubbock. The line, this might shock you, 36.5 points. Oklahoma State is in a bad way. The Fighting Oklahoma State Jayhawks, they have Doug Meacham as their interim head coach and Clint Bowen as their defensive coordinator. I like the under in this game because I do think Clint Bowen is a good defensive coordinator. The line is so big, I don't want to take it, but also Texas Tech, there's no way that the offensive line is going to be able to stop that defensive front from Texas Tech. I'm going to hate to say this because this could be a 48-point blowout. Give me Oklahoma State on the line just because it's way too big of a line. 36.5, way too big. Like Oklahoma State here. This might be the first time I'm taking Oklahoma State on any kind of spread. TCU at West Virginia, 17.5-point favorites are TCU. Love TCU here. I know it's in Morgantown. West Virginia's a dumpster fire. Don't like West Virginia. I like TCU. I really like Josh Hoover as a quarterback. Give me the over in this game as well. 55.5. I think it's going to be high scoring. Houston, Arizona State. That is at Arizona State. Arizona State's only a 7-point favorite. It's at home. Connor Wegman is okay. Houston's a fine team. I still like Arizona State in this game. This game is going to get into the double digits. I don't think it's going to be a 2-touchdown game. I'd like them around 10, 11 right there. So I like Arizona State on that line. Also, I like the over at 46.5. That feels low to me. Colorado at Utah. Utah's good against BYU. And that was a fun game to watch, by the way. But I like Utah. It's in Utah, not fully bought in on Colorado as well. So give me the 13.5 for Utah. Give me the under in this game, 49.5. And then for the last one, KU K-State. KU right now favored for the first time in 16 years at 3.5. It's the first game at home in the newly renovated David Booth, Kansas Memorial Stadium. Give me Kansas, baby. The Dan Courtwright special. Kansas wins. Kansas covers. Over under. Give me the under. I do think a lot of people are saying they don't think weather's going to be an issue. I think the weather's going to be an issue. I think it's going to be a lot of run game, which means the clock's going to run down. There could be a lot of scoring in this game. 55.5 is the line right now. Give me the under on that one as well. That's some college football game picks for you. We will talk to you guys on Monday. Really appreciate all of you joining the show and watching here on kansasnation.com, as well as YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you get your podcast. Thanks so much for listening. Again, big weekend for Kansas Athletics, so be sure to stay tuned for everything that you need to know at kansasnation.com. We'll see y'all on Monday. Rock Chalk Sports, kansasnation.com.